Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
Coming up on the First Take podcast is Rajon Rondo's attitude hurting his NBA stock. Plus, is Johnny Manziel still in the Browns' plans? And we have an all-access look at Money Mayweather's mansion. All that and more coming up on the First Take podcast, which starts right now. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Take. I'm Carrie Champion in studio in Bristol, Connecticut. It's just me and you today. Is it me and you today?
Yeah, we got the rug jerked right out from underneath us because he said he was going to be here, and now he's not.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I did not say I was going to be here today, but I will say this to you. I will be there tomorrow and Friday.
Oh, so you're coming in for the Spurs funeral tomorrow. Is that what it is?
That's going to be awful.
No, actually, I'm coming in. I'm going to be there, and then I got to go do Boston-Cleveland Game 3 in Boston.
Okay.
And then after that, I'm coming back to join you in studio on Friday.
Good. We love it.
I think he's coming tomorrow because we have Evander Holyfield.
Oh, that'll work.
Oh, that'll be nice.
Yeah, that's part of it. That's part of it. That's part of it.
Well, let's talk about who's on the show today. All access, Floyd Mayweather. Stephen A. received a tour of his home, and we're going to show that.
Lord.
What do you mean, oh Lord?
That $15 million tour of the cars?
Yeah, he had a $15 million a car garage, and you saw.
Wow.
And you walked around and hung out with him. We're going to show that to the people. They need to see. All right?
Okay.
Also, we have top NFL prospect Dante Fowler Jr. He will join the desk as well. But let's talk about this game last night. It was a Josh Smith and Dwight Howard show in Game 2. Rockets and Mavs. By night's end, the Rockets entertained with 15 dunks, the most in a game in the last 15 seasons. But also by night's end, we saw Mavs point guard Rajon Rondo sitting on the bench after playing only 34 seconds. There he was sitting on the floor. A proud point guard, guys. We asked the coach what exactly happened.
Well, he got his fourth foul, so I took him out. And then, I like the way the other guys were playing, so elected not to put him back in. Coach's decision.
What did you think of Rondo's effort tonight, and do you think he wanted to be out there in the second half?
You can ask him that question. All I know is right now we need everybody, at their competitive best. And this isn't about one guy that did or didn't play. This is much bigger than that. This is about everybody pulling the same direction, for the organization. That's what it's all about. And so, we just got to go home and we got to take care of business at home. They've done what they're supposed to do. As a home team, we got to do what we're supposed to do.
All right, so here's a little resume. Rajon Rondo had 2 trips to the finals, 1 championship ring, 10 career postseason triple-doubles, and had less than 10 minutes of play in this playoff game. Stephen A., they talked about his lack of effort. Perhaps he wasn't focused. He was benched in the 4th. How much has Rondo's stock gone down?
It's completely plummeted. He's cost himself tens of millions of dollars. He's a shell of himself. It looks like an unmitigated disaster, the experiment that is Dallas with Rajon Rondo. He's been a shell of himself. He just hasn't stepped up. Let's take things into consideration when we're looking at the game of basketball and what it entails. In today's game, Skip, you spread the floor more. There's a lot more spacing. There's more perimeter shooting. There's a more up-tempo game. That doesn't feed into the greatness that we've seen Rajon Rondo put on display throughout his years. Then when you see that and you witness it, then we ultimately find ourselves leaning towards his personality. Coming out of Kentucky, Tubby Smith, who loved Rondo, also warned folks that he was a different kind of cat, that his personality was different, that as great of a player as he had the potential to be, when it comes to leadership ability, that was somewhat questioned because he has these mood swings. That was disguised because of the greatness of Coach Doc Rivers, combined with the greatness of KG, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen as leaders. You looked at Rondo and his ability to play the game of basketball, but in terms of being a floor leader and a floor general, he was relatively temperamental. But you knew that his skills were sublime. Well, then now you get injured, those guys are gone, you transition to Dallas. The talent isn't of the same ilk because Dirk Nowitzki, Mr. 3 of 14 shooting last night, was not himself. Monte Ellis isn't that accurate. Chandler Parsons, we didn't know he was going to be out. He ended up being out. And then ultimately what you have is a situation where you've got the personality differences because Rick Carlisle is a coach who is very, very gifted, very knowledgeable, very skilled. He's a championship coach, but he also controls his team. He calls a lot of plays or whatever. And to Rondo, that may be something that's a bit put offish because he wants to run his own show. So there's a personality conflict there, no matter how they try to disguise it. And then when you couple all of that, Skip, with the fact that Josh Smith played the game of the year for him since he's been in Houston or Detroit, basically debunking all of those rumors because he's coming off the bench for Houston. He would have come off the bench in Detroit. Nobody believed that. Stan Van Gundy gave the impression, at least, that that's not something that he was keen to doing. So he got a bad rap for that. Legitimately, you can say now he didn't deserve that rap. He's been an ideal teammate in Houston. He balled last night. Harden is getting significant help. Dwight Howard looked like a monster last night, the way that he's balling. And even though they'll struggle from the free throw line, they can get stops. Dwight Howard, Terrence Jones, Josh Smith. Houston has been vastly underestimated by yours truly and a whole bunch of other people. Either they look incredibly impressive or Dallas looks god-awful. I don't know which way to claim it, but all of that is going on right now, and it's contributed to Rondo's frustration. Bottom line, Skip, Rondo, to me, has cost himself at least $40 million.
Wow.
And when you talk about being an elite point guard in this game, he doesn't even look like top 15 right now. You could pick 14, 15 guards that you'd prefer over Rondo. The conversations about him getting max dollars has come to an end.
I'm with you on that. And by the way, I don't think I personally underestimated Houston. I underestimated the rift, the impasse that has developed between, as you point out, Rick Carlisle and Rondo. Is it fair to say, I'm just going on what my eyes told me as I watched the game. Is it fair to say that Rondo quit on Carlisle last night? It sure looked like he did. It looked like he wanted out of the game. We heard the media question to Carlisle, and he said you'd have to ask Rondo that question. But when he walked the ball up the floor, that was about 4 minutes into the game, got an 8-second call. Then he's yelling at his teammates, and all of a sudden he loses Jason Terry, forgets to even cover him. He hits a three. And then when he finally comes back in the game in the third quarter, he gets 2 quick fouls like, get me out of here. Got the technical on Harden. It's like he's saying, he's begging, he's asking out. He's done with the Dallas Mavericks. So, again, I'm with you, and I know he has all but been campaigning his Rondo to be with the Los Angeles Lakers and Kobe Bryant, and Kobe's been campaigning back. I'm a no on that, too. Now, maybe Kobe could fix it. Maybe he would play differently. Maybe he would be on better behavior for Kobe Bryant in Kobe's last year. And I don't want to be a hypocrite about this. I must admit, Stephen A., when the deal was done earlier this year, when he went from Boston to Dallas, I applauded the deal because it looked like that's exactly the missing link piece that the Mavericks needed after Calderon obviously wound up with your Knicks from last year's team. And when Rondo left the Celtics, just to be fair about this, he was averaging 10.8 assists, which led the NBA, and he was averaging 7.5 rebounds, which for a point guard, as you know, is extraordinary and obviously the best of the point guards in rebounding. And then he got to Carlisle, and as you know, we both know Rick. It's a tough guy. He's his own guy, and you pointed out he's not going to defer to Rajon Rondo. So it went south in a hurry. Yet Rondo's game has gone south since that ACL rupture of his back in January of 2013. He lost a half a step. He doesn't get to the basket the way he used to with those glory days Celtics of obviously Paul and Ray and their championship team. His free throw attempts have gone way down, and as you well know, we've talked about this, he was a 33% free throw shooter in Boston, which is just abominably bad, and he's upped that all the way to 45% as a Dallas Maverick. As you know, Stephen A., he can't shoot a lick. In this day and age, if you can sag back on defense and dare the point guard to shoot 15-foot shots, you have a decided advantage on defense. So to me, Rondo, he was always a little bit of a liability for the head coach because he's difficult, he's moody, he can be a little surly with the media, and now it's added up to way more trouble than he is currently worth. So I'm with you. Again, maybe, I don't know if you still want him or how you feel about it.
I don't know. I felt like there was some hope there. Last night they were talking about, they were saying that last night that he's the kind of guy you don't give up on. You just let him be him, and perhaps that he can get back in the game. I take it you don't feel that way, Stephen A.
Well, listen, the point is that it's not about his skill set. Do I think that, first of all, I've always said this about Rondo. My problem with him as a basketball player was that he had no perimeter shot that you could rely on. But he showed up in big games. That was what you had to bet your money on. The bigger the game, the bigger the stakes, Rondo would show up, and he'd get it done. There's no denying that. But on a regular basis, day in and day out, he's not a perimeter shooter. And in the Western Conference, when you've got cats, just the sport of basketball, from a psychological perspective, Kerry, Skip, when somebody has the capabilities of giving it to you, meaning putting up buckets, it's going to entice you and provoke you to come right back at them. You have, in the Western Conference, you can't just be a floor general, who can defend. You got to be able to put up buckets. Because a Chris Paul, a Damian Lillard, a Steph Curry, Harden to some degree because he's got the ball in his hand so much he might as well be a point guard. The list goes on and on. These brothers can put up 25, 30 on you in the blink of an eye. You're not going to feel good about yourself if you're averaging 9 points and 6 assists. Mm-hmm. It's just not going to happen. But then with Rondo, the situation is exacerbated exponentially because this is a guy who has proven to be very, very moody. And on a day-in, day-out basis, you don't know what he's going to hit you with from a mood perspective. Skip, he didn't quit on on Rick Carlisle last night. He quit on the entire team. Yeah. He was on the court with his team, and he literally looked like he didn't want to be there. He didn't want to be there. And it's just one game. Watching TNT with Barkley and Shaq and Kenny last night, Shaq and Kenny are right. It was just one game. But Barkley was also right by saying he looked like he didn't want to be there. Mm-mm. That's the truth. And when you are that way in a playoff game, down 1-0 in a first-round series, my goodness, how can you be trusted if you literally look like you don't want to play for the team you're playing for? J.J. Barea looked much better. He's a better shooter than Rondo, first of all. Absolutely. But he looked much, much better than Rondo, primarily because J.J. Barea went out there looking to do his job. And Rondo literally showed up to work, punched in the clock, and looked like he was saying, I really don't want to be here today, y'all. I just don't.
Okay, and just for the record, when you talk about it was just one game, in game one of this series, while Rondo was on the floor, his plus-minus was a minus 25. Wow. So now he's played 37 total minutes in 2 games, and he's a minus 36 in 37 minutes. That's 2 games. That's no good. Well,
but the first game was just bad. This one we're talking about effort. Okay. That's the difference. Right. Here's what Barkley was like, yo, bench him. I wouldn't go that far, but I'll tell you this, Skip. I'd put him in the first quarter in Dallas. And if I don't see him ready to play, I would yank him, and that would be the last minute he plays in the Dallas Mavericks uniform.
Okay. I was going to ask you that because I heard Barkley say bench him. What would you do?
I think they have no choice but to go with him one more time because Chandler Parsons sounds like he might be done for this series. So out of desperation, and again, as you point out, Dirk was awful last night. Monte wasn't much better. You got to give him one more shot just to see if you could climb back at home into this series. But here's the bottom line for me. If you're, let's say, the Lakers, and you're looking at a 29-year-old Rondo, you would have to make a choice here. You're going to have to say, is this all about what happened in Dallas, just the feud between Carlisle and Rondo? Or is it about dissipating ability? Is he just starting to lose it after his ACL at age 29? That's the question.
Yeah, and what do we know? We don't know. What do you think, Stephen?
You're right. You're right, Skip. We don't know. But, again, those diminished skills could have led to the lack of effort, but there's no doubting we saw a lack of effort.
Yep.
And by the way, the one point that I like to add is this. We keep talking about the players. We keep talking about Rick Carlisle. Where's Mark Cuban? Mark Cuban, I have never seen anybody in the Mark Cuban era in a Dallas Mavericks uniform look like they didn't want to play. That's never happened. This is the first to me. And I'm not blaming Mark Cuban for anything. Please don't get me wrong. I'm saying that we're talking, yes, Rick Carlisle is the coach, but the face of the Dallas Mavericks, Skip, is who?
Yep.
This man,
Yep.
I never, you don't come to Mark Cuban's team. The money that he doles out, the commitment that he has shown towards his players, the facilities, resurrecting this franchise, et cetera, et cetera. You don't come and play for Mark Cuban and look like you don't want to play, and Mark Cuban says nothing. I would like to hear from Mark Cuban.
All right, Rajon Rondo and the Mavericks, the story to be continued. Moving on to the NFL, shall we? Browns head coach Mike Pettin says the team still considers Johnny Manziel a viable candidate at the quarterback position. Manziel recently released from rehab, is back at offseason workouts, and needs to secure a place on the depth chart. The Browns have brought in Josh McCown, and there is rumor they're working behind the scenes to get one Marcus Mariota. Pettin on Manziel.
Very much in our plans, and as we said, it kind of hit his career with us, just hit the pause button. And we've said this before, that got to get himself right as a person first before we worry about Johnny, the football player.
They are still very much behind Johnny Manziel, Skip Bayless. Are you believing what Mike Pettin has to say? Are they still invested?
Stephen A., I am definitely not buying what Mike Pettin was selling yesterday about Johnny Manziel being very much in the plans. I believe Pettin is merely trying to talk up Johnny Manziel's trade value. As Kerry just pointed out, I am hearing that they badly, the Cleveland Browns, want Marcus Mariota. And you know what? They just might have the ammo to go get him. They have the 12th overall pick and they have the 19th overall pick. And they do have a Johnny Manziel who could also be tradable. And barring that, remember, they were in the Derby, reportedly, they tried to trade for Sam Bradford and failed. But I do not discount the possibility that if Chip Kelly somehow goes up and lands Mariota, that maybe Bradford could wind up in, some sort of a three-way sort of trade. He could wind up in Cleveland. We already know Cleveland signed Josh McCown to at least be the interim starter, and we already know that Pettin continues to talk up Connor Shaw, the co-rookie with Johnny last year, the undrafted free agent from Steve Spurrier's South Carolina. Pettin said the other day, I think it was yesterday, that Connor Shaw, in the brief time that he got to play last year, showed a subtle it factor. They like this kid. I think they like him more than they do Johnny Manziel. Now, again, maybe my heart is speaking here, Stephen A., because I want to see Johnny get a fresh start elsewhere. I think the bridge is burned with the Cleveland Browns. I don't think he was happy there, and they definitely were not happy with him. So now, post-rehab, I would like to see him fresh start with an apprenticeship with a new team. But my head is also telling me he is no longer in Cleveland's plans.
Well, he shouldn't be in Cleveland's plans because they've proven to be a dysfunctional franchise.
I agree.
In terms of their hierarchy. The owner doesn't seem to be on the same page as the GM. The GM doesn't always seem to be on the same page as the coach. You got GM sitting there and texting information to coaches during games and all of this other stuff. So there's a lot of things to consider there, but please understand, while both of us are fans of Johnny Manziel and we wish him nothing but the best, and we still hold out a lot of hope and faith in him, some of this he's brought on himself. So I don't want to hear about how he's not happy. You have a right to be unhappy when you do your part in terms of what you need to do in order to facilitate your own happiness. And obviously, he had some personal issues that had absolutely nothing to do with the Cleveland Browns. And so when you take it from that perspective, there's no denying that that's not a subject we should broach. As it pertains to Cleveland, Skip, I think they're lying just like you are. I think Pettin's lying just like you do. My point is, I got no problems with Pettin lying. If I were him, I'd lie too. Because until Johnny Manziel is gone, he happens to be your problem. And as long as he's your problem, you got to stand up and support him. You can't sit there and tell a guy straight out of rehab, we're looking to move on from you, or tell the public, we're looking to move on from him when the guy just got out of rehab. I mean, that talk about low blow, I think that would be excessive.
Yeah.
So I don't blame Penn for taking that position. As far as I'm concerned, if I'm Penn until the day Johnny Manziel is gone, until you know you've got Marcus Mariota, until you know you're going with the Connoisseur, who, by the way, let's give Steve Spurrier credit, because he came on our show in studio and said, this guy Connoisseur, he said, I think he could give Johnny Manziel a run for his money. I'm telling you, he said it, so let's give him credit. The point is that unless you have definitively made the decision to go with somebody else and move on from Johnny Manziel, and there's no turning back, you've got to stand front and center and say, he's our guy. Because decency, if nothing else, mandates that you do at least that.
Okay. What you just brought up about Johnny's performance last year is fair. He did nothing to speak up for himself on the football field. I couldn't recognize him last year. He was a disaster. He was nothing like the Johnny football we saw at Texas A&M. I don't know how much the addiction had to do with all that, but I'm going to remind you one more time, and I hope this is the last time. On draft night, as I reported just after the draft, nobody in that draft room wanted Johnny Manziel at that point in the draft, except for that owner and that now no longer there quarterback coach. Remember, Dal Loggins got the text from Manziel, showed it to Haslam, the owner, who said, hey, what are we doing? Let's get him. Let's take him right now. He wants to be in Cleveland. Let's go get him. Remember, the head coach, the GM, and the now ex-offensive coordinator, Kyle Shanahan, were not sold on Johnny Manziel, especially at that point later in the first round. So it was ill-fated to me from the start. It reminded me a little bit of the Vince Young situation in Tennessee, where the GM wanted him and the head coach did not want him. And when that happens, bad things are going to happen from that point forward, especially with these kind of quarterbacks, these sort of unconventional quarterbacks. Everybody has to be on board or that quarterback has no shot.
Well, yeah, I get where you're coming from, Skip, but that's not the first situation where that's happened with the quarterback, number one. And number two, and more importantly, I wasn't just speaking about Johnny's performance on the field. I was speaking about his behavior off the field.
Sure.
By mere virtue of the fact that he checked himself into rehab, clearly before he checked himself into rehab, it stands to reason that he wasn't doing the things necessary to be all he can be, which is what may have contributed to the negative feelings he may have had about the experience in Cleveland. Now, that doesn't absolve the Cleveland Browns from the dysfunctional tendencies that have sifted through that franchise like a virus. But what it does speak to is that Johnny Manziel had a responsibility to handle himself. Okay, Brian Hoyer wasn't in rehab. You know, a whole bunch of other players on that squad weren't in rehab. Some of us might think Josh Gordon needs to be, but we can debate that till the cows come home. In the end, give Johnny credit for going to rehab, and my heart goes out to him and his family, and I'm rooting for him. I like Johnny. I truly do. But it's important to know that if you have to check yourself into rehab, that means you are admitting that you were really engaging in some detrimental, self-destructive behavior. And when you do that, you can't point to an organization and say, well, I wasn't happy there. Well, what did you do to make yourself happy?
You don't want to miss this either. First take on the road for Vegas, folks. Fight Week. We'll be at the MGM Grand Pool Complex Wednesday through Friday. We have special guests, 50 Cent, Jamie Foxx, Jake Gyllenhaal. Our doors open at 5:30 a.m. That's local time. Shows live at 7 a.m. Come to watch First Take on the road. And speaking of the fight,
they call this the $1 million garage.
I know we're on television, Floyd, but I think it's necessary for me to say, damn.
Well, you know, we are on ESPN. These are sports cars. This is a sports network. This car costs $3.2 million. This Bugatti right here costs $1.6 million. You ain't seen these?
I haven't seen these?
No.
What? Floyd, this is 7 cars, man. Silver, platinum, Miami, black, L.A., white, Vegas.
Yeah, in New York, I got my drivers.
And you got your drivers in New York?
Yeah.
Why? Talk to me about why you make the decision to drive different colored cars in respective cities.
Spoiled brat.
Oh, just being a brat?
Just being a brat.
Oh, Lord, this is your closet?
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? I do got a Patek Philippe on my wrist.
Okay.
I think this watch probably costs $100,000 with no diamonds.
Let's move on.
here you are leading up to Manny Pacquiao on May 2nd, and something that you haven't been doing in quite a long time, you decided to go back to. Why is that?
I want to win. I really want to win.
He wants to win. He really wants to win. That's another excerpt from Stephen A's 7-hour-plus day with Floyd Mayweather. You got a chance to go to his home, the $1 Million Garage. And he also said, again, what's probably most important is that he wants to win. There's some huffing and puffing to my left, some head shaking to my right. I'll start with the huffing and puffing.
Go to your left.
I'm going to go to the huffing and puffing.
Go to the left.
Your reaction. Stop it.
Stephen A. Smith. You want to know my reaction? It's Lord have mercy on all of us. On all of us. Wait, I was losing track. 3.2 million was for the Bugatti? Is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay. And then it was...
Got 5 of them.
Yeah. 1.6 or something. I don't know. I was losing track.
One was 1.6.
Okay.
The other was 3.2.
Yeah. All right.
And he said it's the only car. He said it's the only car in the world that actually appreciates in value. So he bought one for the 1.6. It's now worth $3 million.
Yeah. Floyd's mind is so quick, and I'm not kidding about this. He does have a great business mind. Quick calculation, because you said 15 to 20 million just in cars in the garage. He said, no, it's 15 million. He just added it up in his head. Now I'm back to my point the other day, and we're going to talk about this. In all my career, my lengthy career of covering professional athletics, never, ever have I seen a professional athlete flaunt his wealth the way this man, Money Mayweather, flaunts his wealth. He rubs our noses in his wealth, in his opulence, in the grandeur of his mansion, in the cars that shimmer in his $1 million garage. He gloats about it. To a fault. I don't know what the MO is. We'll figure this out in just a minute. But here's the contrast for me. As I watched your piece on SportsCenter while I was running on the treadmill this morning, I was trying at the same time to read my USA Today from today. And one of the lead stories on the front of the sports section is Pacquiao's time at Fleabag Motel revealing. And it talks about how even after Manny came to this country and started making a little bit of money boxing, he continued to stay at this $50 a night Fleabag Motel within walking distance of Freddie Roach's gym, the Wild Card Gym in Hollywood. And for those who don't know, there are parts of Hollywood ain't so cool, right? Most parts. But I mean, most people think, Hollywood, you're in Hollywood. No, you're not. It gets a little rough in many parts of Hollywood. So in this story, I'm reading along, and I told you the story about Manny grew up in poverty in the Philippines, had to leave home at age 14 because his mother could no longer feed him. Then I read this anecdote in this story. Around age 10, it got so bad in the household that Manny's father killed the family dog for food. Killed the family dog for food. And Manny was so upset about it that he became estranged from his father at that point, and this precipitated eventually, in a few more years, his leaving home to just live on the streets of the Philippines and box for a living because he started making $2 a fight. Street fights. $2 a fight. So this is the man who came from that kind of poverty. And by contrast, Floyd Mayweather Jr. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth because his father was a professional boxer. His uncle was a professional boxer. I'm not saying they were wealthy at that point, but compared and contrasted to the way Manny grew up, I think Floyd had some money as he was growing up. Again, in boxing parlance, had the silver spoon in his mouth. So now we can talk about how this affects the wills of each boxer heading into this fight, because one's from the equivalent of a third world country ghetto, and the other is flaunting his wealth and talking of retirement. Your response to that?
Well, first of all, you're accurate in terms of what Floyd does juxtaposed to what Manny Pacquiao has done. You're also accurate in elocuting that we haven't seen a professional athlete floss the way this brother flosses. There's no question about it. I wouldn't do it. You wouldn't do it. most guys wouldn't do it. But let's be clear, most folks can't. Let's also be clear about something else here. Most folks don't come from where Floyd came from to this level of success. I don't just look at the actions of what somebody does. I try to discover to some degree its origin. And what I want to do here, Skip Bayless, Kerry Champion, is be very, very careful about how I express this, because now you're getting deeper, because you're talking about somebody and you're talking about their upbringing, which ultimately leads you to talking about their family. I respect Floyd Mayweather Sr. I respect what he has done in the sport of boxing, as a boxer, as a trainer. Sugar Ray Leonard, even though he beat him, talked about how tough he was. And obviously, even Floyd is willing to admit, although he's taken it to another level, the greatness, at least initially in terms of its origin, came from somewhere, so he's not trying to rob his father of that. But it's important to note that at times in the past, with 24/7, when Floyd was on HBO, before he moved to Showtime, his history with his dad was well documented. And you see some of the things that he alludes to. Skip, there are some people who don't have, even when they appear to have. Because just because your father was earning something doesn't mean he shared it with you. Just because your family had something doesn't mean you had access to it, because if your relationship ain't what it should be, then where does that leave you? Was Floyd starving and homeless? Not to my knowledge. But Floyd, at the very least psychologically, had an incredibly difficult upbringing. If you listen to and go back and watch those tapes, it even got to a point where his father literally said, I love my son, but my son needs to get his you-know-what whipped, because that needs to teach him some manners. That's what he said about him in the past. That's how estranged they were at one time. That's clearly not the case now. His father was there when I did the interview for the last couple of hours. They seem to have rectified whatever was the divide, and I'm happy for them about that, more than you could possibly know. Because as a black man, you don't want to see a man with his father being that divided. But the flip side to it is that you can't ignore what Floyd had to go through. And ultimately, no matter what love, you can point to anything, the love, the cars, the house, the plane, or whatever the case may be, everything came from the money. So if everything came from the money, and that included not just materialistic things, but emotion and love, or whatever the case may be, whatever's in the mind's eye that convinces you you're respected or you're loved or whatever the case may be, it came from the success that you reaped. And what I see when I'm around Floyd is somebody who is clearly the boss, and more than anything else, Skip, lavishes in being the boss. And what enables him to be the boss is the money he's able to dole out to individuals who work for him. That's what he clearly cares about just as much as anything else, because to him, to not have it is to be exploited and taken advantage of and steamrolled over. And that is Floyd's nightmare. That is what he fights to ward off all the time. And if you talk to a lot of brothers out here in this world that have had similar problems, even if they don't come anywhere close to having achieved the level of success that Floyd has achieved, it's all the same for us. When you come from a background where you have that kind of divide, whether it's in the form of money, success, power, whatever it entails in your little cocoon, whatever secures you and insulates you from the abuse psychologically that you feel you were exposed to earlier on in life, you do everything you can to avoid that. This is his way of avoiding it. It's hard for me to argue with that.
Okay, well, this is the way he avoids it, meaning what way? He's doing what
the way that he avoids it is not only being successful and being rich, but flaunting it as if to say, I don't need you, I don't need anybody, I'm going to be all right. So we can sit there and talk about him, we can malign him, we can do a lot of things, but it's usually going to be from afar. The people in his inner circle wouldn't dare do that because he'd ice them. So he's insulated by that. That's where his comfort zone lies. And regardless of how, I see you, and I don't blame you for feeling the way, please don't get me wrong, I don't blame you for feeling the way that you feel. But for a lot of individuals, particularly young black men, who have gone through similar circumstances, again, you don't have to have his success, but any semblance of power that will ward off the vultures from coming at you to eat you alive, you will utilize it to keep them at bay. This is a mechanism I believe he uses to do just that. Okay.
I appreciate that, and I accept that. I can't really relate to it, but I respect it. Now, he's on the biggest stage of his life. Not that he hasn't been on big ones before, but this is a big stage. He just did 7.5 hours with Stephen A. Smith All Access. There still is another motivation operating under the surface with Floyd in how he's trying to present himself to the boxing public or the public at large. Now, this is drawing in people from all walks of sports life. Well, to me, this is just me, and maybe this is his M.O. He is making me like him less by the day. I keep trying to like him a little bit, or at least respect him as a boxer, and now I can't even, I try to reach out a little bit with my arm psychologically, and I can't even do that because he's just driving me farther and farther away.
But Skip, you're not getting it. He doesn't want you to like him. You know why? Because he's actually, and again, the whole stuff, he was incarcerated, domestic violence issues. That's a separate issue. So he understands how the Kerry champions and women out there would feel about him. He gets that part. But when it comes to you, Skip, when it comes to me, when it comes to people who love boxing, he actually wants you to dislike him right now because he's disgusted with people like you and others who have put him in a position where he feels like he still has something to prove. His attitude is, not only am I 47-0, the sport of boxing has proven to be, in a lot of folks' eyes, corrupt. To the days of Sonny Liston, for crying out loud, where there was questions about Muhammad Ali and everything. He's like, wait a minute. Boxers have been at the mercy of the sport for decades, and here I come. I'm my own boss. I accomplished all of this, and y'all trying to knock me down? He's appalled by it.
I get it. It doesn't matter what I think of him. All that matters to me is that I believe he's creating deeper and deeper animosity in the psyche of a Filipino who came to this country to survive as a boxer named Manny Pacquiao.
And he has that animosity towards Pacquiao, and that's what you're missing. He feels Pacquiao chirping, while also trying to paint himself as the good guy. And he said on many occasions, you don't know about Manny Pacquiao's life, but I'm not going to say anything because I wouldn't do what he's doing. Oh, trust me, he wants this now too.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
He was Florida's defensive MVP. Our Todd McShay just moved him up on his latest mock draft. We welcome in former Florida defensive end Dante Fowler Jr. Great to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm great. Just being able to be here at the debate table.
Carrie's a big fan of yours.
I recently became a big fan.
Just did, like in the last
5 minutes. For two reasons. Stephen A, I met him in the makeup room, and he said that he is a communications major and that he will see himself one day taking over your spot. And then during the commercial break, he actually sat in Skip Bayless's chair because he was ready to battle him.
What he's not realizing is that he's still a young puppy. Okay, he's still young, and by the time he's finished with his illustrious NFL career to come, all right, by the time he's finished with that, I'll be looking to retire. So you can have my seat.
No, not a problem. AARP.
At that point, I will not be looking to retire.
Come on, get out of here. All right, so before we went to break, you picked Floyd. Make your case, my friend.
All right, well, I picked Floyd is 3 reasons, and I'm quite similar to him. One, Floyd, he's a winner. 2, he knows what he does. He knows that at the end of the day, you know, it's a lot of great boxers. Pacquiao, you know, you got a lot of great boxers. But at the end of the day, he knows that he's the number one. He's pound for pound the best fighter out there, and he knows that. And you know, I know that I'm pound for pound one of the best defensive players coming out of this class.
Yeah.
Okay.
And number three, he feels good. You know, when you feel good, you play good. You see his entrance. He has Justin Bieber, all them great guys. You know, he's comfortable. You know, that's his setting, that's his feeling. And I feel the same way with him.
I'm sorry, you say Justin Bieber, all those great guys? You like Justin Bieber?
I mean, you know,
you
know, don't hurt your NFL stock. Don't answer that question.
Don't answer that question.
No, they are good.
All right.
Those were three good reasons.
They were very good
flimsy reasons.
But they were good.
Yeah,
okay. You want to talk more about the fighter shot? We flipped to this Instagram photo that I think is pretty interesting.
Let's do it.
All right. So you posted a photo of yourself sacking Jameis Winston, and you said, "Who's really the number one?"
Ooh.
Now look at that. That's a little trash talk. So you're saying that you should be the number one pick, and from my understanding, you've told that to Jameis.
Yeah, you know, it's just competitive. Me and James, we go all the way back to high school. We played in the Under Armour game together, and, you know, we were able to get to know each other that week, and, you know, we know each other, so it's just a little competition.
But do you believe that in your heart of hearts?
Oh, I believe it in my heart 100%. Okay. You know, I know when it comes down to it, team needs, you know, I feel like the quarterback spot with the Buccaneers, they do need a quarterback. But at the end of the day, if it was just going off of picking the best guy off the board, it's me.
Well, since you're so confident, Dante, answer this question for me. What the hell happened to the Florida Gators this year?
You know,
you on that team?
Yeah, a lot of things.
I mean, y'all, explain yourself then. What's up?
It's just really capitalizing on opportunities. You know, the coaches, they put up a great game plan. Much time put up a great game plan. Offense coordinator, defense coordinator, both of them put up great game plans. At the end of the day, it's our job to capitalize on them opportunities when it's crunch time. I know LSU game, we dropped the touchdown pass in the end zone. Florida State game, missed a couple field goals. But it just, you know, when it's crunch time, we just have to capitalize on the opportunities. The coaches, they can't go out there and, you know, make the plays for us, make the catches and all those type of things. It's our job to do that. So I feel like if it was anything going into this year with the Florida Gators, it's just being able to capitalize on them big opportunities when it's crunch time.
Well, explain this to me. If you look at Tampa, they were 2-14 this year. They only had 2 victories all season long. Beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Don't even get me started with that one. And then they beat the Washington Redskins, actually romped them. My question to you is, why should you be the number 1 overall pick ahead of a Jameis Winston, considering the needs Tampa Bay obviously has?
Just because of the type of player that I am, the will that I have, the passion that I have for the game, and, you know, I'm one of them guys that's going to be very dedicated. I grew up playing this game. I grew up playing the sport. I started playing when I was 4. So, you know, I'm just very passionate, and when it comes to landing all on the line on Sunday, that's me. I'm going to do whatever I got to do for my team, and I'm a team player, I'm a team guy, and I'm gonna be the type of guy that gets the spark around, you know, just the whole team, not even the defense, the offense. I'm going to get them going, and, you know, I'm just do my job.
Good answer. Go ahead, Skip.
Good answer. So now Todd McShay has you going 3rd, which is pretty impressive behind those first 2 quarterbacks. But it's to Jacksonville. Now, again, you're Florida through and through, St. Pete, UF.
Yes, sir.
Jacksonville is on an up-and-coming defensive team, but not a great football team. Would you be okay with Jacksonville, or do you have your eyes on some other team?
I'm fine with Jacksonville just because of the new coaching staff that they brought in. Coach Gus Bradley is an awesome coach, up-tempo, high beat.
Did you click with him?
Yes, sir. Clicked with him. Well, we met right after my pro day, and just being able to get up to the facility and get to meet the coaches and, you know, just to see how Jacksonville really is. And, you know, he's a great coach. He's building a great program over there.
On Monday, Miami Heat president Pat Riley held a media availability and was asked about the plan for the offseason. Unprompted, Riley issued a statement which was interpreted by Miami media as a shot at LeBron James.
No more smiling faces with hidden agendas. Okay, so we'll be going in clean.
I'm unaware. Whatever he said, really, for me, it's not my concern right now. My concern is game 2, but I have no notion of what transpired today.
All right, Stephen A., we're putting Pat Riley on the hook. It appears he will not let this go. Do you know why?
Well, he's bitter. There's no doubt. There's no denying that. And I'm going to preface my comments by saying what I always say. I have the utmost respect for Pat Riley. He is one of the iconic figures in the history of basketball. The Miami Heat are a first-class organization. They're elite in every respect. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't enjoy saying this, but Pat Riley is coming across as bitter. And, I'm going to come to the defense of LeBron James here. And contrary to this belief, Skip, the Kobe's, the Allen Iversons, and people like that. I don't have that kind of relationship with LeBron James. I respect his talent. I think he's the greatest in the game. But it's a high and by, strictly interview whenever I can, and that's about it. I mean, nobody's trying to defend LeBron here. But LeBron is not wrong. The fact is, LeBron decided that he wanted to leave. He didn't leave in the fashion that he left Cleveland, but Riley's treating it that way. He clearly feels snubbed. He clearly feels betrayed. And if Pat Riley feels that way, then perhaps he needs to tell us why, because none of us are seeing it. LeBron James decided to leave the Miami Heat. I told you, Skip, that his relationship with Pat Riley, while incredibly respectful, could have been better. Pat Riley, when LeBron arrived in Miami, they were rock stars. Instead of just having a team security, one individual who happens to be the best in David Holcomb, okay? Instead of doing that, he had a security for Bosh, Wade, and LeBron. There was once upon a time where, an all-star break and, playoff games or festivities or whatever, everybody could be on the team playing. But when LeBron arrived, that wasn't the case because it was too much. It became a bit more complicated. Well, that led to Pat Riley having to remind everybody that he was the boss. He's the president of basketball operations. And as a result, LeBron's friends and family members were not treated with the degree of luxury that they were treated in Cleveland. Now, everybody wants to do their own thing and try to, separate themselves. Rich Paul, who is a damn good agent, is doing a hell of a job representing Eric Bledsoe, Tristan Thompson, and other guys, establishing his own thing in his own name. They don't want to be a part of that. Maverick doesn't want to be a part of that. Randy and those guys don't want to be a part of it. But the fact is, LeBron loves these brothers. He's known them since he was a kid. He loves them. And if in any way the perception is that they have been mistreated, he's not going to take kindly to that. And I was told that Pat Riley once walked up to him and told him, paraphrasing here, you kind of need to distance yourself from your friends. Well, that was year one. LeBron never forgot it. And he was there for 4 years. Mama and the access that she had in Cleveland wasn't the same in Miami. LeBron never got over that. And if you Pat Riley, whereas you're not wrong, because it is a business and it is your organization, this is the best player in the world. And he's box office. And the revenue that he has helped generate for your franchise is undeniable. You can't treat him the way you would treat everybody else. You have to understand that with greatness comes perks to some degree. LeBron is LeBron. And Pat Riley was like, no, I'm Pat Riley. And I'm not saying that he's wrong. I'm saying it didn't work for LeBron. And so when he decides to leave, you got to be willing to accept that and just eat it and move forward. If Chris Bosh had not gone down this year, a legitimate argument could be made that the Miami Heat could be going to the conference finals to meet up with Cleveland. Chris Bosh, Hassan Whiteside, you discovered him. Dwayne Wade played 62 games this year and averaged almost 30 in the month of March. Goran Dragic, you picked him up before the trading deadline. The Miami Heat have a bright future. They were just injured. But clearly being at home, watching LeBron James in the postseason is something that is rubbing Pat Riley the wrong way. It's reminding him of what he had to go through. Remember, I told you he was very, very frustrated. When LeBron sent him to Rich Paul, he wanted to talk to LeBron face to face. Rich Paul was like, no, you got to come through me. I represent LeBron. And LeBron was like, that's right. And that really, really ticked Pat Riley off. I understand it. He's not wrong for feeling that way per se, but were you that mad when LeBron decided to snub Cleveland the way that he did to come play for you? No. It was a business move on LeBron's part to come there. It's a business move on his part to depart. And Pat Riley, who's incredibly astute at making business moves, should have a greater appreciation for that. And he doesn't seem to in this case, because it seems to have hit him personally. But if it's going to hit you personally, and it's not just about business, then you need to see what you could have done better. Because Pat Riley's as cool as they come, Skip. But sometimes he's cool, other times he's the boss. And he's a bit aloof and a bit distant, according to some of the players.
Yeah.
And sometimes that rubs certain guys the wrong way. Didn't affect Dwayne Wade,
no,
but it affected LeBron. It's the way it goes.
Okay. I will also disqualify myself before I answer the initial question. I'm a big fan of Pat Riley's. I've known him since his first early days of coaching the Los Angeles Lakers. And I always liked being around him. He was always good to me, very accessible and quotable with me, so maybe I'm not objective at all about this. I hear what you're saying. Number one, you just stated this fact. Pat Riley didn't mind it when LeBron James left Cleveland high and dry and took his talents to South Beach. So he benefited from that move, obviously. And you're right. He's bitter. This is a wound, a deep wound that will not heal. He's better than this. He's so much above this. He should just let it go and move forward with, as you talk about, the bright future that he is building for the Miami Heat. But he just couldn't help himself. He had to take one last shot as it sort of came full circle going into another offseason, because he feels like he got duped, he got blindsided, he got lied to, and he got betrayed by LeBron James that he felt like he did a whole lot for. It wasn't just Dwayne Wade being LeBron's big brother and mentor. It was also Pat Riley. And you've talked about this before, and you know way better than I. Pat taught LeBron some ropes, too. He taught him how to handle himself as a professional. And
yes, he did.
No matter how you slice it, LeBron walks away from Miami with his first 2 rings. And that's pretty great. And Pat Riley has a resume to back himself up, as you well know. So he's not just shooting from the lip here. He's been there, and he's done a whole lot of that. We could argue his resume versus LeBron's resume all day and all night. The problem is, in the end, the guy who plays on the court is LeBron James. And it just didn't click in the end. Somehow the bridge got burned, but Pat didn't see the bridge on fire the way you knew the bridge was on fire. So he felt like LeBron continued to smile to his face and didn't hint to him. He didn't even hint to him about his growing bitterness against Pat Riley over all of this, the way he began to tighten the reins a little bit and say, as a basketball team, let's travel together. Let's not travel with our friends and loved ones. And you talked about that fateful turning point moment that Pat Riley did not grasp, which was he's trying to help LeBron by saying, distance yourself from some of your inner circle a little bit. Let's be a basketball team here. Don't ask me to coddle to them. I'm not going to kiss your tail is basically what he's saying, the way it got kissed in Cleveland, because we want to pull together as a basketball team. We want to be one together. We don't want you to be able to do whatever you want to do with your friends and family. Okay? Well, I'm okay with that because it was working. But he didn't see it coming. He didn't know how deep that wound was with LeBron.
But if you were blind to it, Skip, was it because, and I say this respectfully, we are talking about the great Pat Riley here. And when I use the word arrogance, it's not derogatorily.
No, but he
was it
arrogance.
I'm saying, but were you blind to it, or were you arrogant in terms of, I'm Pat Riley, this is what I've done, this is how you've benefited from it, and that is that. Because LeBron, again, I just pointed out how Dwayne Wade missed 20 games this past season. LeBron didn't miss 20 games in 4 years. He took them to 4 straight NBA finals.
I hear you.
And all I'm saying is that if you Pat Riley, you got to know when somebody, and I told you this before, there's Alonzo and D-Wade, and then there's everybody else.
I agree.
You can't have the best player in the world on your squad and he's on the everybody else category.
I get it.
It just can't happen.
I know.
It just can't happen.
Yeah, I'm with you. But just remember, just to sum this all up, going back a year ago, the signals that Pat got were that LeBron, I think he tweeted about how Shabazz Napier was his favorite player in college basketball.
Yeah.
So Pat says, I'm going to get you Shabazz.
But Skip,
go ahead.
But Skip, I was here on this show with you. And remember, even though I said, I can't believe he's leaving, it was because it's South Beach. Why would you leave this weather, the palm tree?
Yeah.
I kept saying that. But in the same breath, sitting next to both of y'all, Kerry, I specifically said, look, I'm hearing he's going.
Yeah.
It's a year earlier.
Yeah, okay.
I said, I'm here. I told y'all, like, you don't think I mentioned that to Miami?
Sure.
I said, look, y'all, I'm just telling you. This is what I'm hearing. Oh,
Okay.
please, Stephen. I'm telling you.
But Pat,
this is what I'm hearing.
Pat clearly didn't get any of those signals directly from LeBron or from Rich or Randy or Maverick or whoever else.
He might have ignored them.
He might have ignored them. So he went out and got a couple of pieces, cheaper pieces. But you remember Josh McRoberts and Danny Granger? They were LeBron-esque pieces. He was going to put them around LeBron. Yeah.
No. He didn't get the pieces he's got now. You get the kind of pieces that you had now in place. Trust me, that would have been more appealing to LeBron. He wasn't getting those kind of pieces for LeBron.
So Tim Tebow signed a one-year contract with the Eagles on Monday, and Vegas has released some top bets. And let's just say Vegas isn't really betting on Tebow to do much. According to Bovada odds, Tebow has less than a 30% chance of making Philly's 53-man roster. Steve, would you bet on Tebow making the roster?
Man, especially at these odds, Stephen A. Smith, I definitely would bet on Tim Tebow to at least make the Philadelphia Eagles opening day roster. And in fact, when we're in Las Vegas next week, I just might venture into the casino and put a couple of bucks on. Just $2.
No way.
Just $2?
Just
Come on.
That
Well,
sounds
at those
about right.
odds,
$2 sounds about right.
when it's 80% against him,
All
so
right.
I kind of like that.
All right.
Stephen A. Smith, this is what I know. This is what I wrote for ESPN.com. I know that Chip Kelly, back at the Combine in February, happened to be having a conversation with Jimmy Sexton, who represents Tim Tebow, and that Chip Kelly was surprised to hear from Jimmy Sexton that Tebow was still dedicated week after week after week to working with the throwing guru Tom House to improve Tim Tebow's mechanics, that he was in good shape and that he badly wanted another shot in the National Football League. So Chip Kelly invited Tim Tebow to fly to Philadelphia to work out for Chip Kelly. He did that. Clearly, he impressed Chip Kelly, who wanted to sign him on the spot. But at that point, Chip Kelly was already in the process and wanted to preserve the leverage of trading Matt Barkley, possibly to Miami. That trade fell through. I don't think Matt Barkley has much of a future left in Philadelphia. He will not be on this roster. Which brings us back to Chip Kelly is the one man in the National Football League, the only coach I know, who loves to defy conventional NFL wisdom. So, right now, unless he does land Marcus Mariota, and we could debate whether that could be good or bad for Tim Tebow. It could be a good thing if you got Marcus Mariota because they have the same sort of skill set. But now he is left with, number one, a brittle Sam Bradford as his starting quarterback, and number two, a highly shaky Mark Sanchez as his number two. And we know what happened down the stretch last year when Mark Sanchez came apart against Green Bay and Seattle and Dallas and Washington as the Eagles lost 4 out of 6 and fell out of the playoff race. So I am told that Mark Sanchez, when he heard that Tebow was a possibility in Philly, went to Chip Kelly and lobbied, please don't do this to me again. I went through it with the Jets. Please, Chip, don't. I think that ended up being a positive for Chip Kelly to sign Tim Tebow because I'm not sure Chip Kelly is any more sold on Mark Sanchez. Bottom line, would I bet a couple of bucks that Tim Tebow would at least be the third quarterback on this roster on opening day? I would bet that.
So in other words, what you're saying to me is that we're on national television today, and we're talking about Tim Tebow's possibility. You're talking about Tim Tebow's possibility of being a third-string quarterback in the NFL.
That's what we're betting.
I take the bet. I definitely think it'll happen. I definitely think that Tim Tebow can be a third-string quarterback in the NFL.
The question was.
Congratulations.
Oh,
and I got to tell you this. Skip. What I'm really disappointed in with Skip, Skip, about Tim Tebow. Does Vince Young deserve to be on somebody's roster?
Absolutely. In my
How can
opinion.
From now on, when we talk about Tim Tebow, I want to talk about Vince Young too. Because to me, I have a problem with a guy. Tim Tebow has the it factor. I've said it. I think he belongs in an NFL roster. I think he belongs in an NFL locker room. I want to see him there. I'm still not convinced the brother can throw. And he's my friend. But I'm not convinced
I'm shocked.
that he
I've
can
never
throw.
heard you say that before in the history of the show. That's a first.
So for
that
me,
Tim Tebow can't
for
throw?
me,
You saying
all
that?
I'm saying is for me, if Tim Tebow can make the squad, and they got to disguise him as a quarterback, as a third stringer, fine. Okay, I don't care. But I do care about the fact that there seems to be these allowances that are given for him that I don't see for a lot of dudes, particularly somebody like a Vince Young. So maybe out of sheer fairness, if we're going to talk about Tim Tebow, a third stringer, and that possibility, can we at least mention that Vince Young should be on the roster too? Can we at least do that?
Well, you know I'm the biggest Vince Young fan.
I know that.
He went
That's why I said it.
31-19 as a starter in Tennessee.
That's right.
He was the offensive rookie of the year as a rookie in Tennessee. He made, if memory serves, I'm off the top of my head, I think he made 2 Pro Bowls. Then he went on to Philadelphia. I thought he played really well in that one game for the Eagles at your Giants. Remember a late Sunday afternoon game when he took him in for the winning touchdown? Yeah, he showed up.
Yeah. I think it was to Riley Cooper, if I remember correctly.
He did. He threw the winning touchdown pass went to Riley Cooper. But then Vince bounced up to, where was it? I think he went to Buffalo's camp, and then he went to Green Bay's camp, and I thought he was going to make the roster in Green Bay, but he got cut. Okay, so he did get a few more chances. Tim Tebow, again, we don't need to beat this to death, but that first year, it was his series of rookie kind of starts. It was his second year in the league. He went 7-4 in the regular season, led them to a division championship. He won a playoff game. He turned Denver into the leading rushing attack in pro football, and I think Chip Kelly looks at that little resume and says, I can work with that.
Right.
So, again, I wish Vince would get another chance. I think it's just outrageous. It's an NFL crime he's not in the league anymore. What's Vince, like 30-ish? Tim is 27. So Tim deserves, I believe, one last shot. He's with the last guy and the only guy who would give him that shot. And again, I think he might even get a chance to compete in some preseason games, dare I say, to be the quarterback in Philadelphia, the starting quarterback.
Dare you say it?
Well, I'm just throwing it out there. I've been told that.
Really?
But my point is, what's the bet?
Okay.
On the roster?
Yes, on the roster. So
I like
you're
it.
going to put $2 down.
I'll put $2 down. I'll bet 2 for you, Stephen A.
Stephen A., you're going to put $2 down?
But please, feel free to put down $2 for me, Skip, because I need the money. Please.
Yes,
please.
you do.
ESPN Radio.
With the action on the court, the diamond, or the gridiron.
Comes alive.
The NBA.
The San Antonio Spurs are the world champions.
Major League Baseball.
San Francisco Giants are the champions of the baseball world.
The new college football playoff.
College football playoff national champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Your home for the best in sports play-by-play.
ESPN Radio.
The 2015 schedules were released on Tuesday, and the season will start with the defending champion New England Patriots at home against the Steelers. Other key matchups, take a look. The Patriots schedule, it says at week 5, Cowboys, week 6, Colts, week 12, Broncos. Let's talk about the schedule and the defending champions, shall we? We have our NFL analyst, Jeff Saturday, on a Wednesday joining us.
Not again.
No, you know, we do that joke, Jeff Saturday.
On a Wednesday.
You've never heard that before, though.
No, first time. Yeah, way to go.
Skip, I'll give this one to you.
Okay.
How will the Patriots do this season?
All right, I'm going to put my NFL analyst hat on here.
Please do.
I'm going to crystal ball this. I like the Patriots to go 12-4 against this schedule next year. This schedule is ranked 22nd easiest in the league off last year's win-loss records. That's 22 out of 32 teams, 22nd easiest. Now, obviously, there are 3 tough games away at Dallas, at Indy, at Denver. I believe this Patriot team can win a couple of those games on the road. And this Patriot team gets to play Pittsburgh and Jacksonville and Washington and Philly and Houston and Tennessee, and those are all winnable games to me. Now, clearly, the division got much tougher. But the division features 3 rivals who still don't have a quarterback, to me, that strikes fear in the hearts of Bill Belichick. Not one of them has. You can argue Ryan Tannehill. I won't. I'm sorry. So I'm not going to say the Patriots are going to skate through the division, but I think they can win the division on top of all those other wins and win a couple of those road games, and that adds up to 12-4. Now, obviously, Jeff Saturday. They lost Revis, and they lost Wilfork, and they lost Browner, and they even lost Akeem Ayers. But Gerard Mayo comes back to join Hightower and Jamie Collins at linebacker. That's a pretty good trio. And Ninkovich can rush the passer, and obviously Chandler Jones can, and that Jabal Sheard, when I watched Cleveland last year, he flashed a little bit for me, and they signed him to rush the passer. So the weapons are mostly back on offense except for Shane Vereen, and I think they can overcome that. So I'm looking at 12-4 for the defending champs.
Yeah, honestly, I like where you're at. I think as I was looking at the schedule, nothing really struck fear in me either. I do think the one kind of caveat to that would be the Miami game, the last game of the season, going to Miami.
They opened at Miami last year and lost.
It's always kind of an iffy one for them, right? Late in the year, going down, playing in heat. But irrespective of that, I think they win this division. And I think it's not only because of what you see with the strength of schedule and all that kind of thing, but Bill Belichick, arguably the greatest coach in NFL history, understands how to develop players in his system throughout the season. You never hear him complaining about how much time they can spend on the field, how much practice. He just does it. However he has to find his way, he finds ways to get his players ready. If he goes into a game and he feels like he needs to run it 40 times to win, he'll tell Tom Brady, we're going to run it 40 times, we're going to win. If he feels like he's got to go throw it 50 times, go throw it 50 times. Do we need to play a 3-4 against this team to give them problems? We're going to do it that way. We need to run a 4-3. And the way that he coaches and his philosophy of making players play to the system and to the strength of their football team, it produces 11-5, 12-4, 13-3. And the greatest compliment you can give him is in the big games. That doesn't change. When he does go to Indy, when he does go to Denver, however you say it, he's going to have those guys believing you're going to be the most prepared football team on the field that week. And that always gives you a chance to win. I can't, I played against him a number of times. He gave me all kinds of headaches. We won, we won our share and all that kind of thing. But he is a coach that gets the very most out of his teams. And that's not going to change. And there's not a team in that division that's going to press him because I don't feel like they do have that. Either they don't have the quarterback, like you said, they don't quite have the system put together yet. They're still building, still pieces away. New England has a piece, and when you got Tom Brady, the leadership that he's going to give your football team, and to the Vereen thing that you said, we've seen what Bill Belichick can do. Multiple running backs can run his system, and he's going to get the best guy in for the moment, and he produces wins that way.
All right, Stephen A.
I disagree with both of y'all. I think that the New England Patriots are going to lose 5 games this year. First of all, I think Buffalo, the Jets, and Miami to a lesser degree, but I think the defenses are formidable enough where you consider some of the things that have transpired. I think Tom Brady is going to feel some heat, not to mention because of the losses of Darrelle Revis, of Browner, of Wilfork. I think they're going to suffer a little bit on defense, going to put more pressure on the offense, and I think as a result they're going to find themselves making mistakes they don't customarily make. They ultimately will win more games than they lose. They ultimately will get back to the playoffs, and we understand that. But I think that there's going to be some growing pains there during the regular season. I could see them losing at least 2 of those games, whether it be against Miami, Buffalo, or the Jets. I can see 2 of those 3 beating the Patriots at least once. Then when you talk about road games, being at Dallas, at Indy, at Denver, I think they're losing 2 of those games. I believe that. And then I think whether it's the Philadelphia Eagles or it's the Houston Texans, I believe they'll lose 1 of those games as well.
Wow.
I think that the New England Patriots are going to go 11-5.
Okay, so you got them 11-5. You got 12-4. We're splitting hairs. That's
1 game in the NFL. Y'all act like that's a big deal.
I am hearing from my friend Stephen A. Smith that he is falling headfirst onto the Jets bandwagon. That's what I think is happening here. Yes, I hear that.
How can that be the case and they don't have a quarterback?
Well,
Their defense is big time, and I think that Tom Brady is going to get some licks placed on him within division play.
Well, yeah, but
I think it's going. I think that to some degree, I think they're going to suffer a little bit. I think they're going to lose two of those 6 games. I really do.
I do agree with you defensively. I do think that the Jets get after, but they got after them last year. I mean, those games are always close. Sure, it's never a blowout game. Those teams are always tight. They're always going to play each other. I think Buffalo, to some degree, is going to be the same thing, right? They can rush the passer. Sure. They're going to run the football. So the games won't be. I don't think those games are going to be blowouts or just giveaways by any stretch of the imagination. I question them losing 2 of 3 at Dallas, at Indy, at Denver.
Well, since you brought that up,
yeah,
you know the psyches, obviously, of the Colts, Andrew Luck, and obviously your old friend Peyton Manning. How big a deal will it be to Andrew Luck and Peyton Manning to win these games just for their own edification, after they've been losing to Tom and company?
Yeah, I think for Luck and the Colts more because of where it is in the season.
Right.
As you're looking at Indy that time of year, they will have just played at Dallas, so there'll be no excuse of what just happened. Indy needs to win that one, right? Yeah. They've been every time they played the Patriots. It's not losing. Like I said, it's not like the Jets or the Bills, some tight games. They're getting run off the field.
They got run off the field, and it was the same. It was a Sunday night game last year. Right. That Jonas Gray.
And where did he go after that?
Exactly. Well, but he went somewhere that night. He went in the end zone for 200 yards.
Are you ready to make predictions or no?
No.
Too early in the season.
Oh, yeah. We don't even.
Okay.
We don't even know if they're going to get hurt. What about preseason? What about training camp?
I just want to see if you just
too early.
All right. What about Deflategate? You know anything about that? You mentioned the Colts. I hear you have some insight.
No, I do not.
You do not.
Nothing on Deflategate. I know nothing of the matter. I thought we stopped
It is
talking
ridiculous.
About
It is ridiculous that it has taken this long to make a decision.
Defending champion Spurs look to even their series at 1 apiece against the Clippers tonight. Skip Spurs, because they're Skip Spurs, have lost 4 or 5 when they've trailed 2 games to none under Greg Popovich. But the Spurs haven't lost back-to-back games since they lost 4 straight during that rodeo road trip back in February. So it is worth noting that the Clippers are 15-1 since March 17th. Perhaps some light at the end of the tunnel for Skip Bayless. Stephen A., who wins tonight?
Well, listen, I was on the record saying that they would split this series in Los Angeles, the first 2 games. So I'm going to go with the San Antonio Spurs now, but not just because I'm making that prediction. It's because I think this could potentially be a do-or-die situation for San Antonio, despite the fact that they go back to San Antonio for games 3 and 4 of this first-round series. What I saw in Game 1 was an absolutely dominant performance by the Los Angeles Clippers. The Spurs did out-rebound them. They did have about 9 more assists than the Los Angeles Clippers, and it simply didn't matter. They had no answer for Blake Griffin. They had no answer for the dominance of DeAndre Jordan. The athleticism on the Clippers' front line combined with the sensational play of Chris Paul and the spark plug that is Jamal Crawford. San Antonio looked as helpless against an opponent as I've seen them look in quite some time. And when you look at Thiago Splitter giving you less than 10 minutes, 9 minutes and 57 seconds to be exact, Skip, I was under the impression coming into this series that he would be fine and ready to play. He was limping noticeably. He clearly had no lift. And this guy is the anchor of your defense. And he can't really go for you. When you look at that, then that puts Aaron Baines on the floor playing 20 minutes. And no disrespect to him. He's a good kid and he's got a role. But he can't mess with these boys. And so when you look at it from that perspective, and then Tony Parker being chipped up, going against Chris Paul, who is on a mission, to me tonight's game is very pivotal. If not in terms of the outcome, at least in how you go down. If the San Antonio Spurs get dominated tonight, the way they got dominated in Game 1, the prospects don't look very good because the Clippers' confidence would only elevate, which I can appreciate because with DeAndre Jordan, when Popovich employed the Hacker Jordan philosophy in the first half, he hit 4 of those 8 shots. And so that's 50%, not the 39% shooting he did from the free throw line throughout the regular season. He does that for you in this series. I don't see how San Antonio can beat them with the health issues that they have.
I tried and tried last night to make a case for my Spurs, and I cannot make a Game 2 case for my Spurs. I'm not going to give up on them. I'm not going to dismiss the possibility that they could go home and climb back into this series slowly but surely, dribble by dribble, and win a couple of home games, and who knows, maybe go back to Staples and win a Game 5. I'm not going to dismiss that possibility, but right here, right now, I just fear, Stephen A., that what I told you on Monday was exactly what happened. I think my Spurs created a monster in Chris Paul and company on Sunday night because they created a confident monster, a defensive monster. That was the best defense I have ever seen the Clippers play in the Chris Paul era. I did not know they were capable of playing that kind of defense. It seemed like everywhere you turned, there were two Clippers jumping on whoever had the ball for the Spurs. And when the Spurs tried to swing the ball the way they can swing it, the way nobody can swing it, there were more Clippers there and more Clippers there. They were just quicker to the ball than my Spurs were on both sides of the ball. But when the Clippers play defense like that, trust me on this, my Spurs have always thought when push came to shove, the Clippers would fold on the defensive end, that they just didn't have that defensive character or know-how that the Spurs have built year after year after year. So when that happens, I'm afraid the Spurs get overmatched here. Now, I've talked to I have a guy I know who's plugged into Vegas, who's a handicapping source. He's telling me this is a great bet for the Spurs because the Clippers tonight are a 1.5 favorite at home, and like this is where you should jump on the Spurs because this is where they flex, and all of a sudden you say, uh-oh, they're still there, they're back again.
Okay.
I hope that is right. You don't know how much I'm going to be.
Did that help you?
I tried to make my case, but Stephen A. unmade my case for me. Tiago Splitter is not right. Tiago Splitter can guard Blake Griffin fairly well. He can at least hold his own with Blake Griffin. Aaron Baines got no shot. And now tonight, I think they're going to be pressed to put Kawhi on Blake.
Oh no.
And it starts to limit all your entire defense because ultimately they need to put Kawhi on CP3. But I think they're going to have to resort to using him on Blake Griffin. Is Kawhi strong enough? Does he not have enough sort of a load underneath him to hold off Blake Griffin?
He can handle LeBron.
He can handle LeBron. I don't know. Blake is like bull in China closet.
Okay.
He just gets the ball and turns and ducks that head and goes. And if they don't call something on, call offensive foul, he gets to the rack and he gets fouled, and it's hard to keep him out of there. So I think they're going to have to resort to that. And you brought up Tony Parker. I just can't recognize him. I love Tony Parker. I love you, Tony. I feel sorry for you. You're banged up. You're a shell of yourself right now. You used to be the little engine that could drive that offense, and you drove it to the basket. You got to the basket 0 times the other night. You can't guard Chris Paul anymore. That's a problem. And Danny Green, we love you on the show, Danny. You're great for us. You're in a slump, and I got to be objective about this. You shot 2 for 11 and 1 for 7 from 3 the other night. You're going to have to make 3 or 4 threes to reverse this trend. You know how big a fan I am of Patty Mills, Stephen A. Smith. He is the answer tonight. He is the X factor. He has snapped out of his slump. He is red hot. He is crazy hot from the three-point line. Pop, you got to go with him tonight. You can't dance with who brung you this far, Tony Parker. You got to go with Patty. You got to go with Corey Joseph, because Corey Joseph can guard CP3. He can really play defense. So it's desperation. It's sort of a last stand on the road kind of a night tonight, and I hope they figure out a way to mentally pull this off, because physically I think they're a little overmatched right now.
I'm really disappointed. You sound like it's the end of the world. You know how I get about my Spurs, but I'm being harshly objective about this because I'm just telling you the truth as I see it. Well, just over a week away from the big fight, we now know who the referee will be. No relation, at least I don't think so. His name is Kenny Bayless. He's been the third man in the ring for more than 23 years. He has the charge. Recent memory. Bayless has worked 12 fights with either Manny or Floyd, including 2 of the largest pay-per-view fights. Mayweather's 2013 fight with Canelo Alvarez, his 2007 fight against Oscar de la Hoya. He's from Avon? Oh, no, he's not from Avon. That's a judge.
That's a judge.
That's a judge that's from up the street here in Avon, Connecticut.
Yeah.
Skip Bayless.
Yes.
Your reaction when you heard about Kenny Bayless?
Stephen A., my reaction was, thank you, God.
Is that
it's a sign? It's an omen. A man named Bayless is going to referee the Pacquiao-Mayweather fight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love Kenny Bayless. I've always loved him in all the big fights. Again, 5 Mayweather fights he's refereed, 7 Pacquiao fights he has refereed. My only issue with this, Stephen A. Smith, is that some people believe that Kenny has a little reputation for favoring Floyd and some of being a little soft on Floyd, being a little too respectful of Floyd. So my man Kenny, we are distant relations. Distant. You got to do this for me. You got to be objective here. You got to call them the way you see them. You got to be fair to my man Manny in this fight, because we go way back, Kenny Bayless.
Skip Bayless. It disgusts me that another Bayless is going to be connected to this fight. I am totally opposed to this.
Yeah.
I know Kenny Bayless is a sensational. He's a sensational referee.
He is.
He has an impeccable reputation. I spoke to our very own Dan Rayfield yesterday on my radio show, Sirius XM Mad Dog Sports Radio, every weekday 1 to 3 p.m.
Channel 85.
Eastern Time, Channel 85.
Thank you.
You know, and he raved about Bayless, and he said anybody in the industry knows this. But I'm going to say something to you, Skip Bayless, and I usually don't put my personal business out in the street, and I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go any further than this, only today. Kerry Skip knows where I'm going, because I mentioned this to him, and he's been laughing at me for about 2 weeks now.
Okay.
I did not mention this, but it's the only time I'm going to mention this, because you know how private I am.
Yeah.
I went home last week, about a week and a half ago, and I was asleep. And I woke up, and obviously I was on the road, and I hadn't seen my beautiful baby girl. And I said, "How you doing?" And she looked me dead in the face and said, "Pacquiao!" I said, "What?" I looked at her and I said, "What? What did you say?"
I love it.
She said, "Pacquiao."
That's right.
So she loves the name and loves how it sounded. And I said, no. Mayweather. And she said, "Pacquiao." It was so bad, Kerry, that I picked up the phone and called Skip immediately. And I said,
funny.
This is insane.
Why is it insane?
So you see something like that, and you sort of get the impression that it's something divine taking place. And I'm like, I gotta ward that off.
You called that.
I got to ward that off, because I can't have that. Now, Skip, because Daddy rules.
Oh boy.
She hasn't said it again.
Okay.
But I will admit, in my ear for the past almost 2 weeks, I keep hearing Pacquiao.
Wait a second. So you're saying now that Kenny Bayless is the referee, and his daughter out of nowhere just said Pacquiao, you're suggesting
this is that vibe.
Yeah,
but I'm warding off all that.
Yep.
I'm not paying attention to that.
I see what he's suggesting.
No, what he is starting to feel is that this is meant to be. It's starting to infiltrate the psyches of his beautiful baby girl. And all of a sudden, a guy named Bayless is going to referee, and he has to debate this Bayless every day.
I feel you that, but I'm telling you. But the greatness of Floyd Mayweather will usurp all of that.
Okay, we got it. Tomorrow, speaking of greatness, we got Evander Holyfield.
Oh, now that
Do you
will be
guys
interesting.
know how he wants to go? Do you know who he's picking?
He better pick Mayweather.
He better. Okay.
Yeah. Remember, he was a man of God through his time boxing, he was on missions. He was on religious crusades. So we'll see
Especially
how he
against
feels
Tyson.
about Pacquiao's psyche.
I see.
Especially against Tyson.
We also have another top NFL prospect. Kevin White will join us as well.
He might be the best receiver.
Interesting.
Oh.
We'll see. We'll find out. Stephen A. says
I
he'll
can't wait
join
to
us
talk
as
to
well.
him. I can't wait to talk to him.
Stephen A.
He's
says
number
he'll be
2.
here hanging out with us. We appreciate it. Meantime, in between
Do we
time,
have to talk about the Spurs?
we do have to talk about the Spurs.
All right,
we'll do
we
that
will.
tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN2. I hope you have a great afternoon, everyone. Thanks for listening to the podcast. You can catch First Take on the road for Fight Week in Vegas, April 29th through May 1st. We're live with special guests at the MGM Grand Pool Complex. Doors open 5:30 a.m. local time. Hope to see you there.